He just didn't think that he could feel good on his own.
I got up the next morning and went into her room, and she was already gone.
You never want to lose a child. You can't imagine what that's like.
We don't have any detox facilities available. We don't have any treatment facilities.
The cartels are running a business, and their job is to get that drugs into their community.
Cartels try to exploit those kids that are coming across.
And it's the greatest national security threat to the United States right today.
I have a person who's really struggling. What can I do? How can I help?
My wife, supports me through and through with everything.
Focus on you and your recovery, and I feel like you can really go a long way.
Drug overdoses kill tens of thousands of people in the U.S. every year. Many of those overdoses involve opioids, like prescription painkillers or heroin. And many of those overdoses happen here in central Illinois, in cities and towns, to people young and old. Tonight we take an in-depth look at what's behind those deaths, at the sources of those drugs, and at what's being done to save lives here in Illinois. We'll hear from law enforcement, lawmakers, doctors, and families affected by overdose.
Shaylin Connor loved to sing. And her mom, Stacy, says she loved life.
She was one of the happiest kids I've ever known. Her nickname growing up was always Smiley. High school, was involved in everything, was a cheerleader. She was homecoming queen.
Shaylin got accepted into college, but after her senior year of high school, she found a new group of friends.
Started dabbling in marijuana, and she liked that. Started drinking a little, and eventually they were popping pills. We did everything we knew to do. We had her in treatments. We brought her home. She went to meetings.
Eventually, Shaylin went to treatment for 6 months.
She came home in June. We really thought she had it beat this time. She got a job, was working out with me, living at home, doing great. Had no idea she relapsed. She came home on a Friday night, hugged me, said, "Love you, Mama," going to bed. And I got up the next morning and went into her room, and she was already gone.
Shaylin died last October. She was 22. Her story is painful, but it's also painfully common. The state health director says last year, nearly 2,000 people in Illinois died of opioid overdose.
It's really across the board, from north to south, east to west, every community. No one has unfortunately been really spared or left untouched by the opioid crisis.
Opioids are a class of drugs that includes prescription painkillers like oxycodone and hydrocodone, and the street drug heroin. In high doses, they shut off the part of the brain that makes you breathe. State health officials say if nothing changes, 2,700 people a year could die by 2020, just in Illinois.
The drug supply in Illinois is one that's getting more and more and more poisonous every year. That's largely related to the introduction of these synthetic drugs.
Those synthetics are drugs like fentanyl, made in labs and much stronger than other opioids. Christian County Sheriff Bruce Kettlecamp says synthetics are turning up more and more.
We've seen the heroin cut with fentanyl here in Christian County. We've got lab results back where the fentanyl was in with the heroin.
The news may be dire, but those affected by the opioid crisis are stepping up to help. Shaylin's mom, Stacy, has helped teach others about a drug that can stop overdoses.
It's deep in our heart. I mean, we want to go out. We truly want to help people. We're doing it because we care. We don't want anybody to go through what we've been through. Addiction doesn't discriminate. Shaylin was your all-American teenage girl. And she had dreams. She had hopes. You know, when she came home this last time, she wanted to get a job and get out on her own and get married and have kids like everybody else. But for whatever unfortunate reason, that drug just doesn't let you do that.
Jennifer Bertoni is a mom too.
I have 3 grown children and one 14-month-old granddaughter. She is my world.
She has a lifetime of memories.
Like the picture of me and my sister.
But almost 20 years ago, those memories took a painful turn.
When I was about 28 years old, I had a tooth that was hurting and had a dentist prescribe me Vicodin. Something just switched in my brain, and it got so bad that for 20 years, that drug was the only thing that was important to me, and all I had to do was go ask for it.
She asked her doctors, she asked ER workers, and when their supplies stopped, she bought off the streets, taking up to 40 pills a day.
You feel so good. That's how it starts off. And then after a while, you're turning and you're starting to take it to not be sick. You don't shower, you don't eat, you don't care. You just want that drug.
Jennifer worked as an EMT, work that kept her from trying heroin. Still, by last January, Jennifer's life was slipping away. Health officials say thousands of people like Jennifer are addicted to opioid drugs.
For individuals who are grappling with end-stage cancer or severe pain, opioids are quite literally a godsend. However, if misused or prescribed inappropriately, individuals can become dependent upon them, and that dependency is what we now call, or what we think of as, opioid use disorder.
Opioid use disorder is a condition that's exploding, increasing exponentially in the United States.
Jerry Cruz leads the SIU School of Medicine. We asked him why the condition is exploding.
It starts with prescription pain medications like oxycodone. They are available. They are relatively expensive. They're produced in large quantities and they're distributed in large quantities.
He says some doctors prescribe those meds more than they should, that emergency departments often rely on those drugs, and that families sometimes share leftover painkillers. Plus, addicts may use those drugs to handle trauma and stress. Once addicted, users can move from prescription painkillers to cheaper street drugs like heroin and risky synthetic drugs like fentanyl.
I wanted my kids, I wanted my grandbaby, I wanted my parents in my life.
Last year, Jennifer's addiction drove her to a decision. She sought treatment, and in the months since, she's leaned on support from others.
I have been in the moment with everything, with my kids, my family, and that feels so good.
Like Stacy Welch, she also wants to use her experience to help others.
I know I'm only one person, but I've got, other recovering addicts that are willing to come together and help. But we've got to get going. I mean, we've got to get started somehow. And I think that's going to make such a big difference.
Up next,
my whole life leading up to that moment was a blur.
What it takes to break free of addiction and the efforts underway to save lives in Illinois. And later,
the cartels are running a business, and their job is to get that drugs into your communities.
We head to the border, where police and ranchers are fighting the flow of deadly drugs into the country.
If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction and needs help, the Illinois Department of Public Health has a helpline. That helpline has trained specialists who can connect callers with treatments and recovery support services. That number is 1-833-2-FIND-HELP. For a complete list of resources, go to our website, wandtv.com.
You're watching Central Illinois' best source for news and weather. WAND News at 10 starts now.
A storm cell causing a stretch of damage across central Illinois, with multiple tornadoes reported Now, we have team coverage of the hardest hit areas. One place in a state of emergency tonight, Taylorville, Illinois. Multiple crews have been called to assist first responders. Now, we're told there were at least 15 calls for medical help after the storm, but we haven't heard of any reports of people injured. All right, moving on. Tonight, people affected by tornadoes are trying to find important items. One Taylorville resident's woman's son is currently serving in the Navy and checked up on her after the tornado hit. Fortunately, she was able to find her Navy flag.
He's in Charleston, South Carolina, and he heard, with social media, he had heard about the tornado hitting, so he was thinking about us, and I was out picking up some more debris on the road, trying to make more room for people to get through on the road, and I saw the flag that was on.
Good news indeed. And just over an hour ago, Governor Bruce Rauner activated state emergency operations. Right now, state agencies are estimating the impact of the damage done by tornadoes. They're working with local governments to get everyone the resources they need tonight. The State Emergency Operations Center will stay active for as long as possible. And then check this out. This tornado was caught on camera in Cass County this afternoon. Now, a viewer recorded this tornado touching down in Beardstown near the fire station. Now, officials say the tornado hit the water treatment plant, so people who live in Beardstown are asked to conserve water. And then take a look at this damage at the Country Classic car lot in Staunton. That's in Montgomery County. The lot is right off Interstate I-55. And then this isn't the first time the Classic car lot has faced disaster. Now, back in 2017, hundreds of cars were destroyed in a fire. And then while the storms have left the area, many of you headed to WAND Facebook page showing us the damages in your area. My friend WAND's Darren Mullen has been sorting through the hundreds of reports and photos and joins us in the studio. Darren, what can you tell us?
Tristan, reports of funnel clouds and storm damage have been pouring in on social media tonight. And here, just take a look at this. This is from Elizabeth Johnson. This is a funnel cloud just south of Litchfield. And here's another look at the storm coming in also from Elizabeth Johnson. You can see the funnel cloud faintly visible here in the background. This is near Raymond. And look at this one. Kathy Jones sent us this photo of a massive funnel cloud near Taylorville. Plus, there's the damage left behind in this storm's wake. Lonnie Vogel sent us this damage in Taylorville. You can see the sheet metal just piled in the parking lot right there. Matt Norris sent us this photo. You can see damage and debris right there throughout the streets of Taylorville. And Kevin Grove sent us this damage from south of Maroa, where, as you can see, an entire building is just blown over. And this is just a small sampling of the photos we've seen tonight and we'll see on into tomorrow as daylight reveals more of the damage left in the wake of this storm. Live in the studio, Darren Mullen, WAND News.
Thanks, Darren. Mother Nature works in mysterious ways, and we're asking you to share your photos of the tornado and the storm damages. Now, you can email them to us at news@wandtv.com, or you can post them on our social media pages. And continue our team coverage of this powerful storm that traveled through central Illinois. WAND's Karen Izard is here with the latest on the damages in Macon County.
Well, guys, we have confirmed that one person was injured from this storm in Macon County. The Macon County Sheriff's Office said that a young girl was hurt by debris when it fell from her home. Now, she has minor injuries and she's doing okay. But let's talk a little bit about what this storm did to the area. And as it traveled through Macon County, we noticed some debris in the area. We also were in the area of South Lincoln Memorial Parkway where a tree was down. But another thing that we've seen was a lot of sheet metal. In fields, we even saw it wrapped around a pole along the side of the road. But other than that, in Macon County, things have been pretty calm. But stay with WAND News. We will continue to keep you covered on all of this storm damage as it traveled through central Illinois. In Macon County, Karen Isert, WAND News.
Appreciate that, Karen. Now, we start our team coverage there with WAND's Joe Ostrowski. Now, Joe, just how much damage are we seeing over there in Taylorville?
Yeah, it's a dark night in Taylorville, at least in parts of town where power lines are down, lights are out, which makes navigating these streets, in fact, quite treacherous because, again, those power lines are down. there are limbs and other debris. So authorities say one of the best things you can do to be of help right now, if you don't have immediate business here in town helping someone, is to stay away, to stay clear. Firefighters tell us that earlier tonight they were responding to a fire call and had difficulty getting to that because of the sheer traffic here in town. Some of that has died out. What we did see earlier tonight was significant damage to homes, particularly just west of the square here in Taylorville, where we've seen a few garages flattened by trees that have fallen on them, parts of homes damaged significantly, roofs especially on some taller homes. Lots of people out already trying to be of help, working on removing trees and debris from streets, power crews out, first responders out. We were told around 8 o'clock tonight that first responders had gotten about 15 calls for assistance from people needing medical attention. We're expecting a briefing later on tonight. We'll have more details on those. In fact, that briefing is coming up tonight at 11 o'clock with local authorities. We're not going to have that on air, I don't believe, but we are going to have it on Facebook through Facebook Live. Tune into that. That's going to be our next best update on the situation here in Taylorville after this significantly damaging storm. Live in Taylorville, Joe Ostrowski, WAND News.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Bob, it's safe to say that this is a strange way to start off December.
Absolutely. You don't think of tornadic supercells on the first day of December.
I was waiting for snow.
Yeah, exactly. And you'd expect that today with the short days, but of course we had the terrible tornadoes across the area. The good news is all is quiet now. No more severe warnings or watches or anything like that, and it's drying out. So at least those helps working and cleaning up the mess there in Taylorville. Will have dry weather to do that. Right now, Live Doppler 3D Max is showing the last of the showers moving off to the north and east. Still have them around Champaign along I-74 near Danville towards Watseka. These are not severe, maybe some brief heavy rain with those, and also some showers north of Bloomington. Here's how things evolved during the course of the day. We saw those supercells develop to our south and west, and then that one particular one through Taylorville was right along the Macoupin-Montgomery line, moved right up through Taylorville, west of Decatur, up further to the north into McLean County. Over 100 miles this storm had of rotation, and we had more tornadoes as well further to the west in Cass County and back to the north and west of there. Right now, live Roto-Rooter cam showing just wet roadways south side of Decatur, nothing in the way of any kind of rain, and it's still mild. 54 in Decatur, 50 in Springfield, 52 in Champaign, 59 in Paris, but a cooler 48 in Jacksonville. We had highs in the lower 60s today. Still some scattered showers around midnight, and then after that, mostly cloudy, temperatures falling through the 40s. I'm thinking lower 40s by 8, 10 a.m. if you're heading out to church. It's going to be breezy and cold. And yes, more December-like weather is coming, more wind and cold, and maybe some snowflakes. I'll talk about that coming up in just a little bit. Tristan?
Thanks, Bob. And when severe weather hits, stay up to date with WAND by downloading the News and Weather app. There you can get the latest weather updates in your area, as well as breaking news.
Two major developments today. The county market on Pershing Road in Decatur will close. This is the second grocery store to close in the city this past week. But first, just announced a first-of-its-kind drug addiction treatment facility for Central Illinois, and it's all made possible by the Howard G. Buffett Foundation.
The facility will be built at 415 East King Street in Decatur, near the intersection of Martin Luther King Jr. Drive and East King Street. That's in the same block as Crossing Healthcare and the Northeast Community Fund.
WAD's Darren Mullen is at that location now. Darren, what are these plans?
Don, Sean, the Community Care Campus will combine all aspects of a holistic way to treat drug addiction. People are still mingling around right now, taking looks at the blueprints inside the tent. And as for what the project's going to entail, well, it's all made possible by a $30 million donation from the Howard G. Buffett Foundation. Community Care Campus is in partnership with Crossing Healthcare and other organizations here in Macon County. As for what the project is going to entail as far as its final end game, well, it's going to have a walking trail, basketball court, fitness center, movie theater, dental clinic, and also transition housing and a job training classroom on top of it.
The individuals caught in this growing problem are frequently forgotten, neglected, or worse, just simply put out of sight and out of our minds because it makes us uncomfortable, uneasy, and we're not sure how we deal with it.
The closing.
Coming up tonight at 6, we're going to take a closer look at how this new treatment facility will impact Decatur's economy and beyond. Live in Decatur, Darren Mullen, WAND News.
Look forward to that part at 6. Well, the new center will be part of an entire social services campus in the same area. Crossing Healthcare, which provides health and medical services to those in need, and the Northeast Community Fund, which provides food and clothing to low-income families and individuals. The Northeast Community Fund in the process of erecting a new $2 million building.
Well, certainly I think it's another peg in the social service campus that's going to be developed here in Decatur. We are excited about being a part of that.
Construction on the new facility for the Northeast Community Fund is already underway. You can donate to that project by going to the Northeast offices at 825 North Water Street in Decatur. The FBI is investigating decades of clergy abuse in the Catholic Church across Pennsylvania and Buffalo, New York.
As I-Team reporter Doug Wolf has found, abuse from 41 years ago is still having an impact here in central Illinois.
We're looking for Francis Scooby. Right here. How you doing?
Fine.
Okay.
Abuse in the Catholic Church. The survivor. Brother Daniel comes out of the closet and yells, "Let's kill him." The alleged abusers.
We're not going to answer any of that crap. We went through this with him. He's gotten all kind of troubles.
For Mark Powell, the abuse took place 41 years ago in Davenport, Iowa. Francis Scooby sexually abused me when I was a minor. Today, some of the men who Mark Powell says abused him are living in this residential home in Chatham in Sangamon County. They call themselves the Franciscan Brothers of Christ the King. Their leader is this man, Francis Scooby. Mark Powell says Scooby abused him several times when the Franciscan Brothers were part of the Diocese of Davenport, Iowa. And Brother Francis, then in a car trip in Illinois, and then several times at the monastery itself. We spotted Francis Scooby in the passenger seat of a car leaving his driveway at his Chatham home.
Do you remember him?
Yeah, I certainly do.
And he said that you basically molested him when he was a young man.
He's as crazy as can be.
Yeah.
Mark was 17 when he joined the brothers. Don Davidson, who tells the I-Team he was also abused, joined on his 18th birthday. Within months, both men were targets for abuse. Both were monitored, so they could not contact anyone on the outside.
This was truly a cult-like environment.
The treatment of Powell and Davidson came to a head in the fall of 1977 when Powell was able to place a phone call to the bishop of the Davenport Diocese, Gerald Francis O'Keefe. He told the bishop he wanted to leave the brothers and study to become a Catholic priest. O'Keefe, now deceased, told Powell he needed the approval of Scooby. What Powell did not realize is the bishop contacted Scooby and told him about his call. When Powell asked for the recommendation to become a priest, Scooby asked him what would happen if he did not get the recommendation.
And I said, well, brother, I guess I'm going to have to tell Bishop O'Keefe that you've been abusing me, and not only abusing me, but abusing Brother Don. And as soon as I said those words, Brother Daniel comes out of the closet and yells, "Let's kill him."
At that point, Mark decided he had to get out of the monastery.
What I wanted to do right there was to get to the bishop's mansion and talk to him about what was going on, because quite frankly, I feared for my life.
Didn't the Davenport Diocese, sir, find you to be a credible abuser?
No, never.
Not that they told me, that's for sure.
When he was with our community, I can't tell you what he did to me. So
What's
this
your
is
name?
it. I'm not going to say it.
Are you connected with the Diocese of...
Both Mark Powell and Don Davidson believe the driver is Brother Daniel Embrick, the man who jumped out of the closet. Despite his denial, Scooby does appear on a list of credible allegations against priests and brothers issued by the Diocese of Davenport. Also on the list is Brother Mark Quillen. Brother Quillen later became a Catholic priest and is now living under the name of Father Andrew Quillen at the Glastonbury Abbey in the Diocese of Boston, Massachusetts. In October of this year, the Davenport Diocese added his second name to the list of credible allegations against priests. Mark Powell, when he went to Bishop O'Keefe's mansion, was told he had to return to the monastery for one more night and he would be moved the next morning. The bishop asked him for one more thing.
I don't want you to tell anybody about this.
Mark Powell eventually left the Catholic Church and today is a Lutheran pastor. 41 years later, it has been difficult to fully heal because of Bishop O'Keefe's request not to talk about it.
It really put a damper upon my ability to heal, because if someone is abused and are surviving from that abuse, they have to talk about it.
The Diocese of Springfield says the Franciscan Brothers are not connected to the diocese in any way, and they are not connected to a local parish in Chatham, which sits down the street from the residence where the brothers live. Mark Powell says despite what happened to him, he has never blamed God and enjoys his ministry as a Lutheran pastor.
Each day I'm able to preach the gospel to those in front of me, to read the gospel, to be the ears and the love of Jesus of Nazareth in this world.
For the I-Team in Sangamon County, Doug Wolf, WAND News.
And just new tonight, the Catholic Diocese of Peoria is forcing 3 priests to step down. George Hillen, Dwayne Leclerc, and John Underko can no longer work as priests. This comes after all 3 are accused of sexual misconduct. All 3 cases happened more than 30 years ago. Leclerc used to serve churches in Clinton and Wapella back in the 1980s. A violation of trust. Thousands of children and young adults across the country have been abused in the Catholic Church. Tonight, I-Team reporter Doug Wolf talks to a woman who was abused in the late 60s and early 70s.
Stolen innocence.
I would like to see him either killed or caged.
The victims of clergy sex abuse.
During the sacrament of confession, when I was 12 years old, I was raped by a priest.
The denial of the church hierarchy.
Archbishop, you knew it was a crime for an adult to engage in sex with a kid.
I'm not sure whether I knew it was a crime or not. I understand today it's a crime.
For Therese Albrecht, the abuse began at a very young age in the Diocese of Chicago in the 1960s. Abused by a priest, Father Joseph Bennett, and a nun only known to her as Sister Maria.
They abused me together, and sometimes he abused me by himself. The grooming started when I was about 7 years of age, and by the time I turned 8, it was full-blown rape and sodomy.
As a young Catholic kid, Father Bennett and Sister Maria were people Therese trusted.
Sister Maria wore the habit, with the blue veil. To a little kid, that's like the Virgin Mary, And of course, the priest, he was a young priest in the parish, and to me, that was like Jesus. I trusted them like I would trust Jesus and the Virgin Mary.
The abuse lasted several years and left a lifetime of scars.
You can't give me back my life. You can't give me back my sanity. All the years I've lost to depression, suicidal ideations.
U.S. bishops have been told by the Justice Department not to destroy records relating to abuse or the transfer of priests across state lines. The United States is not alone dealing with abuse. Major scandals exist in Europe, with France investigating cases dating back to the 50s. Thousands of children have been abused in Ireland for decades. The scandal spread here to Germany in September, when it was disclosed that more than 3,600 children had been abused in the Catholic Church. A study commissioned by the German Bishops' Conference says nearly 1,700 priests engaged in abuse between 1946 and 2014. Back in the United States, priests have been admitting in legal depositions to years of abuse.
How many males were you sexual with in Pelican Rapids?
1 minor and 2 major.
2 adults.
On November 1st, the Peoria Diocese said it will require 3 retired priests to step down from public ministry, including Father Dwayne Leclerc. Father Leclerc served in several central Illinois parishes, including this one here in Clinton and one in Wapella. The Peoria Diocese does not give exact details, but says Leclerc is accused of abusing a minor 30 years ago. For Therese, going to the Diocese of Chicago never produced an apology.
They were disinterested, cavalier, just didn't seem to care. They would probably been happy if I would have put a bullet in my head, which I almost did. I was a police officer for 10 years, and I almost put a bullet in my head.
Survivors suffer, and so do families, like the mother of a man who took his own life.
She was a staunch Catholic, and she thought he was burning in hell.
Yeah.
It was heartbreaking.
Physical abuse, threats that if Therese told anyone, her father would die. And a haunting rhyme from Sister Maria.
The rhyme was, if you tell, you go to hell. So that was the threat.
Sister Maria is no longer a nun. Father Bennett is retired, living not far from where Therese is today. The Diocese of Chicago eventually made a financial settlement.
He's a monster and he's a danger, and what he does to children ruins their lives and ruins the lives or affects the lives of everyone they love and who loves them.
Stolen innocence, coming out to help those who can't protect themselves.
I'm speaking for other kids. I'm speaking for little girls that look like this, you know, that are in danger today.
Stolen innocence that will never be recovered. Indicator Doug Wolf, WAND News.
Cochise County, Arizona is vast, more than 6,100 square miles, 83 miles of Mexican border. Mark Daniels is sheriff here. He says border problems are his problem.
We have a cartel, the transnational organizations within a few miles of me that are trying to bring their product in this country that's deadly and unhealthy to our cultures.
Those cartels smuggle drugs and people across the border. In Mexico, they bring fear and violence. In the U.S., they move drugs through a sophisticated system of people called mules and spotters.
It's very complex. It goes all the way from the mules, who go to relay points, go up to vehicles, transport vehicles, up to stash houses, and then into the metropolitan areas of Arizona, Phoenix, Tucson, and then it's distributed just like a regular warehouse.
Sheriff Daniels showed us this home in Naco, Arizona. In the garage, authorities found a hydraulic lift to a tunnel running under the border. The sheriff says the Obama administration increased security at ports of entry like this one, part of a federal focus on high-traffic spots along the border. Authorities say hard drugs like heroin often come through ports like these, sometimes even on the backs of children attending school in the U.S.
The cartels try to exploit those kids that are coming across by having them body carry meth and heroin. So that's one of our biggest educational things right now, that we're partnering with the not only the folks that work at the port of entry, but with Border Patrol, to get into the schools and educate these kids on how best to avoid being used by the cartels.
But Sheriff Daniels took us away from those points of entry to a spot where high defenses end.
Now that we're further enough away from the port of entry, we have very little protection down here. And this is where the cartels bring their products and they bring this human smuggling too. There you go.
Back at his office, the sheriff showed us some of what his deputies have uncovered.
We see marijuana, we see heroin, we see fentanyl, we see cocaine, we see meth. And almost 90% of all the illegal drugs in this country that are in your communities and our communities are coming through where we're standing.
Still, Daniels tells us law enforcement are finding ways to fight the flow of drugs together. The sheriff of Yuma County to the west told us that 12 years ago, his county had the highest rates of smuggling in the U.S.
Because we were able to put in the different infrastructure that we needed between barriers, personnel, and electronic surveillance, we were able to do it. And we had a dramatic decrease in the activity in Yuma, along with 100% prosecution of those that were caught. So that moved a lot of the criminal element to more remote areas further towards the east.
We got to stand united on this, and we just can't turn our heads and say, it's not our problem, it's everybody's problem. It's everybody's problem.
Tomorrow, we take to the air and drive through the desert to see how smugglers escape detection and what it'll take to keep those drugs from reaching their destinations. In Cochise County, Arizona, Joe Ostrowski, WAND News.
New tonight, an Illinois Corrections employee is a free man after he was arrested and charged for custodial sexual misconduct.
On WAND's Tristan Hardy in the studio now to explain more on this story. What can you tell us tonight, Tristan?
Well, Sean, here's what we know so far. I'm told the Springfield police arrested Jeffrey Dozier, and he was behind bars at the Sangamon County Jail. He was released and he posted bond yesterday. Now, Dozier is charged with custodial sexual misconduct. By definition, that means an employee of a penal system does something sexual with someone who's in custody. Records show Dozier was a corrections food and service supervisor. A source tells me he was at the Logan Correctional Facility. Dozier's been with the Department of Corrections from October 29, 2001 till May 9th this year. Now, custodial sexual misconduct is a Class 3 felony. This is a violation of the Sexually Violent Persons Commitment Act. So even if it was consensual, by law, it's not. Now, I've sent an information request to the Springfield clerk so I can get a sworn statement and report from the police. I also reached out to the Illinois Department of Corrections for a statement. I was told the department cannot comment on personnel issues. Tristan Hardy, WAND News.
And breaking news to bring you tonight at 6. Another worker at the Logan County Correctional Center accused of sexual misconduct involving an inmate. Records just obtained by WAND News show Milo Zemer now faces a federal lawsuit. In it, a 42-year-old woman identified only as Jane Doe claims Zemer forced her to perform oral sex on him and sexually harassed her, and that prison officials allowed it to happen. The woman also claims some prison maintenance employees would bring things in for inmates in exchange for sexual favors. Since then, claims after she cooperated in an investigation, prison staff retaliated, she says, by transferring her to the Decatur Correctional Center. Records show Milo Zemer is no longer employed by the state. We reached out to the Department of Corrections for comment tonight, but have not heard back. And new details for you. Jeffrey Dozier, a former corrections officer accused of sexual contact with an inmate, facing charges now and appearing in court. Dozier facing 3 counts of custodial sexual misconduct. The indictment claims Dozier and a female inmate touched each other's private parts during his time at the Logan Correctional Center. Court documents say it happened between September 2017 and May of this year. Records show Dozier was a corrections food and service supervisor. He worked for the Department of Corrections until May 9th.
A prison filled with sexual misconduct and widespread failure to stop sexual assaults. Those are the explosive allegations coming to light against the Logan Correctional Center and several of its employees this week. WAND's Darren Mullen joins us now to break down what WAND News has uncovered today. Darren?
Dawn, 3 lawsuits, 3 criminal cases, and 5 employees, all now accused of sexual misconduct involving female prisoners at Logan Correctional Center. Excuse me. The Department of Corrections, for the most part, is staying quiet tonight, but as these records show, current and former inmates at the prison are not.
WAND was the first to tell you about the allegations involving current and now former employees at the Logan Correctional Center. On Monday, former food service employee Jeffrey Dozier was arrested, accused of touching an inmate inappropriately twice and letting that inmate touch him inappropriately. Records show he stopped working with the Illinois Department of Corrections in May. Then on Thursday, WAND learned a lawsuit filed last month accuses prison electrician Milo Zemer of forcing an inmate to perform oral sex on him and continually harassing her, including forcing her to sit on his lap. That lawsuit claims Zemer then illegally smuggled things like a hair straightener and birthday cake into the prison for that inmate. A state database shows Zemer has not collected a check from the state since March and is charged with custodial sexual misconduct, the same charge Jeffrey Dozier faces. Also charged with custodial sexual misconduct, now former correctional officer Eric Colrus. A lawsuit obtained by WAND on Friday claims he and another correctional officer forced an inmate to have sex in a laundry room, and many other officers knew what was happening but didn't stop it. It allegedly happened in December of 2015, the same month Colrus stopped working at the prison. The other officer accused of rape in this case has not been charged and, according to records, still works at the prison. In a second lawsuit obtained by WAND on Friday, claims a counselor at the prison kissed a prisoner after she used his phone to make a court-allowed call to her daughter. He then allegedly forced her into having sex twice and forced her to perform oral sex on him twice as well. The suit claims he implied more time would be added to her sentence if she told anyone. The counselor has also not been charged, and records show he's still employed at Logan Correctional Center.
Now, what you just heard is just an overview of each case. Each one is more in-depth and complex than what you just heard. We have a complete breakdown of each case. You can read right now on our website, WANDTV.com. You can also find them on the WAND News app. During our search online today, we found this, the mission statement of the Logan Correctional Center. It says its mission is to provide custodial care and services for female offenders in a safe and humane environment. 2 now former Logan Correctional Center wardens are also named in these lawsuits. Christine Brannon is named as a defendant in 1 and Margaret Burke is named in 2. Both are accused of allowing the environment that allowed these allegations in these cases to happen. We reached out to the Department of Corrections for the circumstances of their departures. We're told Margaret Burke retired last year and Christine Brannon is now the warden at East Moline Correctional Center. No reasons for Brannon's departure were given. WAND News also reached out to Governor Bruce Rauner's office for comment on these allegations. A spokeswoman told us, quote, "We make the safety and security of IDOC staff and offenders our priority, but we cannot comment on pending litigation." Live in the studio, Darren Mullen, WAND News.
WAND News, the only ones with the camera rolling in Logan County today as 2 former employees accused of sexual misconduct at the Logan Correctional Center were back in court.
We're breaking down today's proceedings and the 2 very different sentences 2 other former employees got there for the same exact charge. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight at 6. We continue our investigation into the Logan Correctional Center and the allegations of sexual misconduct of former and current employees face.
WAND's Darren Mullen breaks down today's new developments and what the past may hold for going forward.
Jeffrey Dozier and Milo Zimmer both once worked at Logan Correctional Center, and both will always remember September 17th, 2018. That's the day Dozier was arrested, charged with custodial sexual misconduct, and also the day Zimmer was sued over allegations that led to him facing the same charge. Jeffrey Dozier was the first to appear in Logan County Court today. He pleaded not guilty to the misconduct charges he faces. The former food services employee is accused of inappropriately touching an inmate between September 2017 and this past May. And then Milo Zimmer also appeared in court today. His hearing is more procedural as his attorney is seeking information from the state related to that case. He pleaded not guilty to the charges he faces, which come from allegations of forcing a female inmate to perform oral sex and allegedly harassing her, including forcing her to sit on his lap. Now, WAND News obtained records on 2 other now former Logan Correctional Center employees who are charged with the same charges as Zimmer and Dozier, custodial sexual misconduct. This is Ryan Motley. Along with being accused of having a sexual relationship with an inmate in 2016, investigators say he also snuck about 10 pills into Logan Correctional Center for her. As part of a plea deal, he got 5.5 years in prison with more than a year knocked off for time served. He will also have to serve 2 years of probation. Ryan Motley is now in the Graham Correctional Center in Montgomery County. Then there is the case of William Wolfsberger. He faced accusations that he inappropriately touched an inmate and had sex with her at Logan Correctional Center back in 2016. He also took a plea deal in his case, but only got 30 months probation with no prison time. Sentencing documents show the court said it thought prison for Wolfsberger was not necessary for the protection of the public, but that the sentence does not deprecate the seriousness of Wolfsberger's crimes and, quote, is consistent with the ends of justice. WAND is now working with the Illinois Department of Corrections to obtain documents related to the allegations and investigations of Milo Zimmer and Jeffrey Dozier. From the newsroom, I'm Darren Mullen, WAND News.
Abuse and harassment. Tonight, WAND News is digging into just obtained records from the Illinois Department of Corrections. We're breaking down the number of cases reported at Logan Correctional Center and how many were found to be true and how many weren't. We continue our investigative series into the Logan Correctional Center tonight. As we've reported, a number of current and former employees are being sued. Others facing criminal charges for allegations of sexual misconduct by IDOC employees against female inmates. Tonight, we are showing you what state records show about the prison, how it treats its inmates, and how it handles investigations of abuse and harassment, and how many of those allegations turned out to be true. WAND's Darren Mullen has been reporting on the Logan Correctional Center since we started our investigation in September. He joins us now tonight in the studio with this special report. Darren?
Dawn, a federal law signed in 2003 created guidelines to protect individuals from rape in prison. That includes annual inspections, either announced or unannounced, documenting those findings and following up on them as appropriate. But while at least 7 former or current Logan Correctional Center employees have been sued, charged, or convicted of sexual misconduct against female inmates, records show an overwhelming number of claims of sexual abuse and harassment do not have enough evidence to back those claims up, sometimes not even enough to go to court.
WAND News obtained those inspection reports in compliance with the Prison Rape Elimination Act, or PREA, for Logan Correctional Center from the last 3 years on record. Those are the years in which the allegations cited in the criminal cases and lawsuits previously reported on by WAND are said to have happened. The first, in 2015, shows there were 16 cases of staff sexual misconduct and staff sexual harassment toward inmates reported, but only 2 of those cases were substantiated. Then in 2016, more than 50 claims of sexual abuse and harassment were made against Logan Correctional Center staff, but only 3 of those cases were substantiated, 2 were listed as ongoing. And then in 2017, the last year on record for the Correctional Center, the total number of cases dropped to 45. None of them were substantiated, while 2 were listed as ongoing. In all, that totals 115 cases of sexual abuse and harassment against Logan Correctional Center employees from 2015 to 2017, with less than 5% of those allegations substantiated.
Now in 2016, records show an independent auditor from Maryland was brought in to make sure Logan Correctional Center was meeting federal standards. That auditor found the prison met 42 standards required, with 1 considered not applicable to the prison. Those standards range from employee training to ensuring investigations into allegations. The summary of the audit says Logan Correctional Center was found to be fully PREA compliant, with the staff described as courteous, cooperative, and professional, while all 31 inmates interviewed said they felt safe inside the prison. However, a number of women say they did not, leading to several employees facing criminal charges and/or lawsuits. One woman, now out of Logan Correctional Center, is suing an employee there after she says he forced her into multiple unwanted sexual encounters.
I feel like nobody's listening to these people. Like, even if they hear them, they're thinking they're lying or, you know, brushing it under the rug.
We share her story and what she says life was like inside Logan Correctional Center tomorrow night on WAND News at 10. Live in the studio, Darren Mullen, WAND News.
Good evening. 7 current or former employees of Logan Correctional Center are facing accusations of sexual misconduct ranging from inappropriate comments to forced sex.
WAND's Darren Mullen has been following these accusations and the lawsuits and criminal cases that have developed since.
Dawn Sean, 2 former employees took plea deals in their custodial sexual misconduct cases, but 2 criminal cases and 3 civil suits still remain. One of them details disturbing allegations made against a Women and Family Services counselor. We are withholding the name of the alleged victim per her request. I spoke to the woman bringing these accusations forward, and she says she just wants accountability.
Few things are stronger than a mother's love. Not distance, not time, not even the bars of this prison.
He came to my door and asked me if I wanted him to call my daughter.
And with just one question from her prison counselor, Jane Doe says she was sucked into a cycle of sexual assault.
We went into the back classroom, and then he started asking me stuff about boyfriends or telling me that I was pretty and just stuff like that. So it switched right when we got alone. At first he kissed me and he was like, "Would you tell anybody if I kissed you?" And I was like, I don't know how to answer that. What kind of question is that?
What was your initial gut reaction when he first asked you that question and then leaned in to kiss you?
Kind of just shock. I don't know, in a way though, you're very vulnerable in that state, and it feels good for somebody to be like, "Oh, you're beautiful," and you know what I'm saying? So it's so confusing. He was also telling me that I would get in trouble too and stuff like that, so I wouldn't say anything. Even trying to get out of a situation like that, the people that you're gonna go to get out of that situation are the ones that are doing it.
What was going through your mind just day to day as you're just going about your day there at Logan?
I gotta do what I gotta do to call my kid. I have to do what I have to do to get by in this place.
What did those phone calls, those few minutes on the phone with your daughter, what did they mean to you while you were at Logan?
Everything, because the first 2 years I was in there, I didn't get to talk to her at all. He would even call and be like, "Oh, do you want to call your daughter?" Because I only had every other week, bi-weekly phone calls with them, and I was getting way more than that. You know, so it was kind of like using that as a tool to get me to where he wanted me to be.
Jane says her counselor continued to escalate the encounters and would touch himself while she was on the phone with her daughter. She says she endured all of it to keep hearing her daughter's voice once a week.
Did he ever take things a step further than that?
Yes.
How so?
I don't really know how to say that. I don't really want to get into details, but there was 3 occasions, as I can recall right this second, that were more than just kissing.
Did he try to force himself on you in any way?
Yes.
A lawsuit Jane filed through the Uptown People's Law Center in Chicago details those harrowing allegations. In it, Jane accuses her counselor of forcing her to perform oral sex and engage in sexual intercourse.
I even got moved to other housing units that he wasn't supposed to be the counselor. I was supposed to get transferred to a new counselor, and he somehow was still my counselor.
The Department of Corrections eventually transferred her to Decatur Correctional Center, a move Jane believes was done in retaliation for the allegations against her counselor. Now out of prison, she's fighting back against her alleged abuser and for the women still inside Logan Correctional Center who can't share their stories.
What does justice look like to you?
I would like for a sincere apology. I don't think that's going to happen. I would like for him to admit what he did and know that it was wrong.
Jane Doe also said she knew of at least 3 other inmates who had an intimate relationship with this counselor. We are also withholding the name of the counselor until we can independently verify there is a criminal or internal investigation into his conduct. WAND News reached out to Illinois State Police to confirm if there was an active investigation into this particular counselor. ISP declined to confirm that investigation, but did say its investigators are looking into Logan Correctional Center as a whole. In the studio, Darren Mullen, WAND News.
Darren, thanks. And tonight, Governor Bruce Rauner telling WAND News he is aware of the lawsuits involving the Logan Correctional Facility. He says the situation is heartbreaking and hopes the truth comes out soon.
Whenever you have a large group of individuals, sometimes you'll have bad actors or people who behave in wrong ways. And I hope we get to the truth of the situation, and I hope that if there's been wrongdoing, that it's fully prosecuted.
Tune in tomorrow night. You'll hear from a guidance counselor about how sexual assault can affect victims for years to come.
1 in 3 women experience some form of sexual violence in their life.
We brought you the story of Jane Doe, who says she was sexually assaulted at the Logan Correction Center. Tonight, the 3rd part of Corruption Behind Bars.
WAND's Tristan Hardy caught up with a counselor to talk about the long-term effects of sexual violence.
When it comes to sexual assault, statistics show most women know the abuser.
Sexual violence is about exerting power and control over someone else.
Knowing there's allegations of sexual assault at the Logan Correctional Center is no surprise to Melissa Stewart.
Women that have been incarcerated, they have a lack of power.
Stewart is one of the many counselors at the Growing Strong Sexual Assault Center in Decatur. She tries to help survivors work on their response to sexual assault rather than the act itself.
She might say that she's been struggling with nightmares or anxiety.
Hundreds of women have reached out to Growing Strong for help. Stewart says every survivor has their own way of dealing with this kind of trauma.
We meet the client where they're at. So I am not the expert on the client is the expert.
How did this affect your mental health as you're going through all this?
I have had mental health issues in the past. I just feel like it was another thing added on to the load of trauma that I have.
Jane Doe says a Logan Correctional Center employee forced her to have sex.
It happens to everybody there. Like, they're not people there.
Stewart says survivors sometimes have flashbacks of their assaults. She suggests people should listen.
How should a person respond when they've been told a person has been sexually assaulted?
You want to respond in the most sensitive manners. I'm sorry that happened to you, and you didn't deserve that to happen, and you do deserve to heal. How can I help?
And remind them it's not their fault.
They try to figure out how they could have stopped the assault from happening, when in fact the only person who truly has the capabilities of stopping the assault is the abuser.
Tristan Hardy, WAND News.
Stewart says there's a sense of pride seeing survivors of sexual assault make progress and improve their lives after experiencing such trauma.
A former pro boxer passing on his training right here in Decatur. Jordan Maxey says it's a love of boxing that continues his dedication to the sport. I stepped into the ring with him to learn at least the basics of boxing for this month's Never Have I Ever. And we're here in your boxing ring, about to learn how to fight. Can you tell me some things to expect or that I should know about before I put gloves on?
No, because everything that you thought you know, you don't know, so everything's going to be new. So you can expect to learn a good jab today. For the jab, this is your jab. Okay. This is your cross. Okay. So when I say jab, you're going to come out, chin down. You're going to be looking just like this. Okay. Kiss that one right there. Boom, jab. Now, you're hitting like this. Yeah. I want you to turn it over. Jab. There's the jab. Let me get these on here. You know, people have maybe a bad stain on boxing, like it's violent, but it's really not. I teach a lot of kids. It gives kids tons of confidence. And now I want the cross. Okay. The cross is your right hand. Okay. Yep. So give me a jab, right hand. Good. Now I want pop, pop. Put them together quick. Good. So if you were boxing me, I shoot the jab at you. I want you to take your right hand and just turn it over like you're catching a baseball. Let's see if you can do it. Catch it, boom, and snap that jab back out there. There you go, that's what I want. Good. I love boxing, so I'll never give boxing up. I love training kids, I love training adults, I love training people like you that's come in today. We got her working. She's throwing combinations, ladies and gentlemen.
You're a pretty good person to learn from, too. We were just talking about your career as a boxer was really impressive. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I was a pretty standout amateur. I won the Golden Gloves 4 times. Trained with some of the best trainers in the world, Emmanuel Stewart, Angelo Dundee, who's trained Muhammad Ali, and the list goes on. I was lucky enough to do that. Went on and turned pro, and I have a 3-1 record as a professional. Okay? Yeah. Slip, slip, roll. Oh, where you going?
I don't know. I'm running away.
And to see your face and see people's face after they throw a good combination, they're like, wow, I can really do it. So that's why I love boxing.
Very glad to have you here for sports. Here in 2019, we're kicking off Hero of the Week with somebody who's the kind of person that you're going to be talking about at the grocery store tomorrow. I guarantee you.
I just do whatever I need to do. I just hold it like that right there and this hand off to the side. I just like go up and shoot it. Switch. I just work hard and I don't act like I have a disability, and I don't feel sorry for myself either because I've worked hard to where I am.
What you're seeing right here should be impossible. Shooting without fingers, jumping high without a leg. But for Decatur Christian sophomore Irina Yakeley, it's nothing special. She uses her Harry Potter decorated prosthetic leg in every direction, every day, beating her medical condition.
Well, I was born with amniotic band syndrome, which is where the bands in the womb just come out and like wrap around limbs. So it wraps around my fingers and around my leg. I am a huge Harry Potter fan.
It's easy to get caught up in just the sheer visual of her deformed fingers or the prosthetic leg. It's what you notice first, especially when she's backpedaling on a fast break. But don't miss the craziest part of this story here. She's good, like really, really good. In fact, she's the best player on her team.
She is a captain, and we chose her as a captain because of her leadership abilities and what she can do, even though she has a disability.
Probably the thing that makes me the most proud is that she has accepted the challenges that have been put forth to her and just never looks back, never lets it get her down.
It all makes you wonder if Irina can be a basketball star without a leg and less than half her fingers. What's the limit of what we can do?
I also work hard to let other people know, like in the crowds or on the other team, that amputees like me can do anything, or limb different kids can do anything. And so I just work hard to prove them wrong.
Here's a good place to start. Irina's shirt. No excuses.